What's up, guys? Western Public coming at you, and today, as you see here, I'm going to read this chapter 2 of my copy of the Bedini SG, the beginner's, complete beginner's handbook, basically. That's what I'm gonna read this chapter here. But before I do that, this series is obviously called Bedini Vindicated with Physics. Okay. I'm gonna give you. This is gonna do a few things. Number one, it's gonna prove that it's not a free energy devices and you get something from nothing. Okay. Excuse me. I'm gonna disprove that completely. 2, I'm gonna show you that this thing is a legit thing. 3, I'm going to give you a list of criteria, a shit test list to shit test videos claiming to debunk it. 4, I'm going to be shit talking some pretty big name YouTubers because they deserve it for lying to the public. I have to assume it's lying. Because it's just, when I learned about this, it was so surface level. And I just hadn't worked on electronics, and I was a shade tree mechanic and electronics dude for 8 years with my dad. And I clearly got what this thing was doing. When I first heard of it about a decade and a half, almost 2 decades ago, we were around, or when before Mythbusters, came out with it. And I saw what it actually was doing, and then I learned some more electronic stuff, half a decade later. I'm like, this is what the Bedini circuit's doing. Why didn't they recreate this? And then I realized it's so surface level. I'm going to assume lying. Okay, I'm going to assume it because I assume the worst when something's so surface level. When you have a little experience with shit like this. But that's going to be for much later in the. This might even be a 8 to 10 video series. It might be 8 to 10 episodes. We'll see though. But I'm also going to show you it has nothing to do with the ZPE or the quantum vacuum or any of that stuff. And I'm going to continue on following the rule of thumb I give you in Wes Savage Explains Over Unity in Detail, which I'll link down below. I'm also going to link down the handbook series and the presentation, which are all in one page, by the way. And I'm going to link that. I'm also going to link again. Actually, the video link itself, and I'm also going to put the laws of thermodynamics again, which I've already put in my my Over Unity Explained video, which also has this book in it too. So yeah. You're going to get all that. Let's continue on. I'm going to read you chapter 2 of this to explain what's going on and ad-lib some wording and do a few adjustments because sadly John Bedini is dead. And yeah, he's dead. Why does this work? And now I'm going to skip this paragraph that consists of the short sentence and a long sentence. Or no, actually, sorry. 2 short sentences and the long sentence. So I'm going to skip this 3-sentence paragraph. See, I'm correcting myself as I go along. Anyway, since it is in fact impossible to actually break any of the natural laws concerning how the universe works, it is reasonable to ask these 3 questions. How does the device operate? 2, what is the real energy balance of the machine's operation? 3, what is the machine? Is it demonstrating an energy gain? Since this is a handbook for beginners, there will be no attempt here to explain these processes in terms of established electrical engineering terminology supported by mathematical formulae. I should have had an E at the end of it, after the A on that sentence, the word formula, because it's formulae, and when you read with me, the rest assured these exist, that short sentence, that the word these and the lack of an S on exist confirms my grammar critique here. It should be formulae and not formula. Instead, supported by mathematical formulae. Rest assured, these exist. Instead, a series of illustrations with a verbal description will be presented, which you can understand which can be understood by enthusiastic hobbyists as well as engineers. The machine's operation does not break any rules which are all established. In electrical engineering practice, it doesn't break a number, though. It does break a number of ways certain laws of physics have been generally interpreted or touted, thereby demonstrating these originally believed interpretations are not entirely correct. Or generally, I meant to say not originally. One of these is the conservation of energy rule. Again, I linked down below the laws of thermodynamics for a reason. First, second, third, and zeroth. And I think the reason zeroth is named because they'd rather not say fourth law of thermodynamics or some BS. I don't know. Don't ask me why. Maybe it sounded more fancy. Maybe it sounded more fanciful. I don't know. Don't ask me. It was discovered in the 1930s, though. John Bedini was a brilliant yet classically trained electrical engineer and electronic circuit designer. I mean, he worked as a technician. He did radio technician and audio technician stuff as well. So this is no surprise. And he was also what they said here, obviously. He holds multiple patents on audio amplifier designs, 3D holographic, 3D sound processing methods, and advanced battery charging systems. The point is, he is a consummate professional engineer who routinely he was a consummate professional engineer who routinely developed, innovative solutions to complex engineering problems. His development of multiple generations of self-running electromechanical machines was not an accident. It was the result of decades of research and experimenting into low-drag generator designs and how to charge batteries very efficiently. So you might ask, well, if the Mythbusters didn't tell us correctly what this was, how in the hell does it work then? I'll tell you. But I'm going to do my ad-libbing and word swaps for what's going to be read aloud in here. Okay? In order to clarify the operation of the self-rotating energizer that John Bedini taught Shawnee Bowman how to build, I would first like to describe what it is and what it is not. This device operates on electricity and it mechanically spins during its operation. Most people think it's an electric motor because of these two features. Well, it's not an electric motor. John had always, from the very first, referred to the device as a self-rotating energizer, or simply an energizer, because it was not an electric motor. Electric motors are actually used to, they're designed and used to drive some other kind of rotating machine or system, like a pump or a compressor or a fan motor, something like that. It would, or what I'm saying, or a fan blade to be a fan motor. That's what I meant to say, or something like that. This is not the primary purpose of the Bedini SG Energizer, as you will see shortly. It's true that it does spin and it does produce a small amount of mechanical work or energy. The way it does this is very different than most electric motors, and due to these reasons and others, its ability to directly drive mechanical loads is very, very small, very limited. The true purpose of the device is to have a very specific effect on the battery that's powering it, to keep itself rotating, and to show you what forces are involved in doing the latter two. That is what this thing does. So it is not an electric motor, number one. Number two, the model Shawnee Bowman built is sized to simply demonstrate these principles that go into this that also exist in electrical science to this day. In this sense, it is a learning tool and not a prototype for a so-called fuelless power plant. It'll power your home. And let me give you a little clue. You push it with your hand to start the son of a bitch. Your hand is a fuel. You could use it as a fuel for whacking off to the point your zinc and testosterone levels plummet in true Coomer brain fashion, or girls slapping the spaghetti until you're crying sore, or it could be more constructive in doing this. I could say pink taco. I could say whatever fucking an analogous wording for that I could, but I just went with my spaghetti because the M&M mayonnaise have just been rampant over the years. With this in mind, let's begin to understand how the device works. See that? See that circuitry? It's a free spinning wheel, and it's got 4 magnets. The north end of each magnet points outward. There's a generator coil, and it has this is called a diode symbol. The diode symbol can either have a couple of little alterations to it to show it's an LED, or it'll have LED next to it, like here. That's a diode symbol. This is called this little rectangle with a plus on one side, minus on the others, and with the 9 and a V is a 9-volt battery symbol. Okay, this is what wire looks like on a diagram. Okay, this is a core of a coil. This is just a 1 coil unit, so it has a 1 core to it. You could make these. You can make 2 of these. The main coil would go on one, and the trigger coil would go on the other. But this is to keep it simple, right? It's 1 coil core, and the big wire here, where I got my mouse cursor over, is the main coil. This little section right here is the trigger coil. These are called coil windings. These little ovular little loops drawn here. You see these on transformers. This thing right here, this little 3-way little deal with a symbol on it next to it, it's called the transistor, as you see over here. This is the resistor symbol. This is a diode symbol of a regular diode. That's why it does not have a LED next to it like this one up here. Now, that being said, you see that little hump in that section of wire? It means that wire is not connected. This wire that comes across here is not welded or soldered to this wire that goes up and down. They're not connected. That little hump there is to show that they're not tied together. Let's continue on with the circuit. The main coil's core has some iron rods in the center of its structure, and they participate in getting the process started. Ferromagnetism and attraction and all that. As one of the magnets on the wheel approaches the iron core of the main coil, it becomes attracted to the iron. So it moves in the direction of the red arrow. You see the red arrow and line drawn there. Here it goes. As the coil gets closer and closer to the core that the 2 coils are wrapped around, the iron rods start to magnetize, and as they do that, a small current is induced in the trigger coil. You see that green line and the green arrows? Is this how it goes? See that winding up, that winding? It goes this way, then it goes down underneath this wire, goes through the diode, through the resistor, and it goes into an 8-figure loop back through here, and it goes around that other wire on that hump, and then starts over again. So the iron rods in the core start to magnetize, and as they do that, a small current is induced in the trigger coil winding that flows in the loop indicated by the green arrows and green line. With the coil wound clockwise, this current is in the wrong direction to activate the transistor, so as you see, that stays off during this approach of the magnet to this, and that's how that works. And there's no power from the 9-volt battery happening. Now, when you see this at the red arrow here, and you see that, the magnetism. This is, by the way, this is called a change of magnetic flux, because the magnetizing is going on. It's called magnetic flux, changing of magnetic flux. And that's what's making this current go in this 8-figure loop here, as you see. That's called the Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. It's how generators work, and when you apply juice to make stuff happen the opposite way, it's called a motor. Now, as you see, as this that magnet's facing down and facing directly on to that coil and its core, and it's right above it, just right on top of it, pointing. That magnetization is done, and the south is pointing at it, and the north is facing down, as per Faraday's law on magnetizing iron and ferromagnetic attraction and stuff. When the magnet gets to that position where it's directly above this iron core of the main coil, a number of things happen. The iron reaches its maximum level of how much magnetizing it can take. It's fully magnetized as much as it'll go, which has been rising steadily as the magnet on the wheel it kept coming to it. This change of magnetic flux is what's been inducing the current in the trigger coil. Like I said, Faraday's law. So when the magnetizing reaches its peak, the change of magnetic flux stops, so the trigger coil's shut off. There's no juice in the loop now. So the magnet on the wheel is magnetized iron in the main coil. So that's attracted to it? That means there's an induced magnetic field in the iron with the south pole facing the wheel and the north pole facing down. But what happens, due to that kinetic energy, that momentum it's stored, and it was holding as it moved, causes that magnet to swing past there. And what starts happening is, this is where the action really starts. The magnet on the wheel has been attracted to the iron. It's stored momentum, so it slips past that alignment with the core. And as it does this, the magnetic field on the iron starts to lessen. And as it does this, the trigger coil winding flows in reverse of what it did before. Now you see this, it's going in as you see in the red line and red arrows. But what happens is it bypasses the diode down here and goes into the transistor, I meant to say, turning the transistor on, so it pulls some juice from the damn batteries you see in the green arrows and green line here. And that when this now activates transistor to turn on, causing the flow of juice from the 9-volt battery to flow through the main coil, and then that makes the magnetic field in the iron flip in reverse, and that pushes this magnet away from there. And at that instant, once this is done, that's done and the magnet's pushed away. There's no more change of magnetic flux, and it's all done. The current flowing in the trigger coil loop stops. This shuts off the transistor, stops supporting the electromagnetic field in this coil. It's no longer keeping it up, or magnetic field, man. And that field must collapse. And what happens is that induces what's called flyback effect, which is a volt spike from EMF, electromagnetic fields, and all the stored electromotive force known as EMF in them when they die. All that's released in a voltage spike, and that causes the trigger coil to turn on and flow like it did in the first image, and shown by the green arrows and green lines here again. And you also pass one of the magnets past the generator coil, makes the LED light up, showing this is keeping going. And the other magnets approaching the generator coil, it's also being attracted to a small amount of iron there. As that magnet slips past the generator coil, the current is induced on the lights to light the LED. That's how it works. As the wheel speeds up, it flashes so quick it makes it look like the LED's running constant. Cycle's about to start again, but this is not the end of how it works. This is actually Even though most self-respecting electrical engineers will be quite pleased to believe that everything has already been done, it's not. The problem is that this was all taking place. The demonstration would normally have done just this way. Would run about 6 hours on a 9-volt battery at most. The science teachers thought that's what was going to happen, but they were confused when the little 9-volt battery was running for 5 damn days. So the machine continues to run because the battery charge drainage is slowed down by a process that has not been demonstrated yet. I've talked about flyback and all that, but I'm getting to where that takes place in this now. Granted, everything here so far is happening and can be measured with test equipment. There's one more thing. It's much more difficult to quantify directly, and this is it. The main coil and the trigger coil, you see that? You see that little red line around that winding going straight to the positive of that 9-volt battery? When the transistor turns off and before the current starts to flow in the trigger winding to dissipate the energy, or the flyback the collapsing magnetic field, a big voltage spike called the flyback spike, consisting of a massive high volt of pure pure potential, travels from that main coil on the as I just showed you on the winding back to the positive terminal of the 9-volt battery along one wire. This is over in just a couple microseconds at most, but its effect on the battery is profound. It temporarily reverses the flow of the heavier ions in the battery, which slows the discharge rate of the battery by up to 95%. Flyback can do stuff like that. This allows the battery to run the toy demonstration, which is the Bedini SG Energizer, for a much longer time than a battery normally would. But the battery will still run out. Again, it ran for 5 days and then it died. Okay? It's nothing perpetual. This phenomenon was first reported by Nikola Tesla in the 1890s. He used his own wording, including radiant energy and all that stuff. And these terms, cross-referenced with Tom Bearden's wording, was what John Bedini used to call it this. But it was just flyback voltage. It's what it's called. Flyback voltage. Flyback voltage spike. Its appearance demonstrates aspects of electrical science that few researchers have thoroughly really understood. Luckily for us, John Bedini spent 20 years experimenting and teaching himself about this until he understood it so he could teach it to a 10-year-old schoolgirl, regardless of the wording. 2. What's the real energy balance of the machine's operation? When measured, the efficiency of the machine is measurable. This mechanical energy of the wheel part of it that spins is less than 20% energy measured of the energy measured from the battery. The energy available from the magnetic field collapse is dissipated in the trigger coil loop. All losses considered, an overall 20% efficiency for the machine seems quite generous. This puts it on par with the average gasoline engine. Not factoring in what I talk about myself, by the way, on my channel, if you haven't seen already. Actually, we'll discuss some more detail in a later chapter. That's what's said in this book in a later chapter. So, 3, is the machine demonstrating an energy gain? Not as described above, no. This is where almost everyone misses the boat. The energy gain is showing up at the battery, not draining nearly as fast because of what the machine is doing to it, messing with flyback. It's not measured in the performance of the spinning rotor part using conventional machine. It is exactly the flyback volt. And with that, I conclude this video, and I hope you enjoy watching.